Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. The show is available via the app up to a week after broadcast. In the first watch today, freedom of speech in Jamaica, fact or fiction. In the second watch, a busier 2021 Atlantic hurricane season, renewed predictions and preparations. For our social media question we ask, where do we draw the line on freedom of speech in Jamaica? Please share your responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag, The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
This point is I quote. It says, "Give me the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely, according to conscience above all liberties." John Milton.
That quote certainly fits well with our first watch, Shivani.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Rev. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well, and you?
Good, thank you.
Hey, you know, I forgot yesterday
What happened
to
now?
ask you about the Olympics.
Yes.
You know, what you thought of the Olympics?
Well,
I know you're busy, right? But what you thought? What you were able to catch and all of that and see?
well, I catch most of the stuff. Really nice. I'm proud of our athletes. They have made us proud. In spite of, we celebrate them and we wish them all the best.
Yes. You used to run when you were in school, Shivani? Yeah.
No, I did swimming.
Swimming? Okay. And you still do?
No, not anymore. I actually did water polo, years ago. Yeah, I don't need it more.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I know something I didn't know about you.
Yeah.
No. All right. Bless you. See you later.
Alrighty.
Listeners, the first watch will be back after this break.
When all is done and said, love me shawty bread. You love me shawty what? You love me shawty bread. And it was made by honey bun. You love me shawty bread.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man. I am a man.
Hey man! Join us this week for part 2 of our discussion on Jamaican married men. What are some of the stereotypes about Jamaican married men? Are Jamaican men getting married for the wrong reasons? Are Christian married men maintaining the standard of what marriage should be? Well, join us this Wednesday, August 11 at 5:30 p.m. inside the mailbox as we turn eyes on Jamaican married men from a Christian and non-Christian perspective with yours truly, Kevin Bailey and Courtney Morrison. That's the program designed for men with guests who are men, hosted by men here on Love 101, the family station.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and the spiritual guidance may just be what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor, on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything at all. For the month of August, our focus on the counselor will be managing inferiority complex. Yes, it's a fancy term for low self-esteem. I'll have a special guest, Raquel Russell, who will share her struggles with low self-esteem, what it did to her, and how she overcame. Maybe you have a similar story and need help to overcome your low self-esteem. Join us on Wednesday, August 11, as Raquel, who is now a confident and vivacious woman, inspires and encourages with her story. Tune in then. Listen, call in, text or voice message, and let's help you start the journey to overcoming your issues. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear on the counselor, right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
And when no one, oh yes you will.
Trilani, love come, so you better tune in for the fun holy I love summer festivities, so you know a nice activities. Hey, I love summer, hey, I love summer, whoa, I love summer, hey, Trilani, hey, Trilani, hey, I will miss it.
Of rights, again tangential but related to the pandemic, would be the issue of another young Jamaican expressing his views about the management of the pandemic and about me as Prime Minister. I want to say categorically, with great certainty, that we are a free country and you are entitled to express your views about how you feel as a citizen the government is managing your affairs. Of course, you would have to do so within the confines of the law. And we do have laws on our books regarding the use of profanity, and there is a standard of decency. But I wish to reaffirm that every Jamaican, regardless of who you are, what station you are, that you have a right to express your views. And as your Prime Minister, it is my duty to ensure that those rights are protected and reinforced.
Okay, welcome back everyone to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and a while ago you were hearing a clip from 2 nights ago when the Prime Minister gave a press conference. Now, as we go into the first watch, the Senton man who was arrested a few days ago after an expletive-laden video in which he was critical of the Prime Minister was reportedly released from police custody without charge. According to media reports, the police commissioner has ordered a probe into the allegation that while in custody, he was subsequently made to apologize to the Prime Minister on video, thus raising questions about freedom of speech in Jamaica. Well, to help discuss this matter, we have online so far Ms. Nadine Spence, social commentator, and we are still hoping to be joined by Mr. Anthony Williams, attorney at law. Good morning to you, Ms. Spence.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well, and how are you?
I'm doing good, I am good.
Yes, especially under the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we go into the nuts and bolts of our discussion, Ms. Spence, what are your initial thoughts on the aforementioned incidents involving that resident from St. Ann?
I guess I'm ambivalent. I treasure the idea of free speech, but I also know that I exist within a democracy. And in a democracy, the principle is the common good. Not total elimination of individual freedoms, preserving individual freedoms, but within the context of the common good. So in other words, the system of governance and or political system that we are a part of says that we have it says that we have personal freedoms, but it also says those personal freedoms should not be exercised at the expense of the common good. And in hearing a lot of the conversations, of course, I would have been hearing a lot of the conversations that transpired around this. People seem to think that the common good, that personal freedoms within a democracy are unchecked. In other words, I can do whatever I want to do because my right to free speech supersedes all other rights. But we remember that the democracy that we exist in is also checked by the rule of law, which stipulates how those personal freedoms should be practiced. So, for example, it should be practiced with responsibility. And I always remember when I'm a student of government and politics, and when you are talking about personal freedoms within the context of a particular political system, one of the things we talk about in a democracy is that, yes, you have the right to personal speech, but you also don't have the right to cause chaos and to do damage. So you can't just run down the street and shout fire, fire, because it might cause a stampede. People might panic, different things might happen, and people's rights other rights might be trampled on, and some of those rights are perhaps more fundamental than the right to free speech. It's not the only right that exists in a democracy. And also there is the rule of law, which says if you are going to practice the right to free speech, here are some rules that you must observe. And if you don't observe those rules, there are different kind of penalties attached to those rules. So there's responsibility with the practice of free speech, and there's also remembering that we have a body of law that says here's how you do it.
How then would you define freedom of speech? Because some people, of course, interpret it to mean that you can say anything you want to say. And if you are not able to do that, then it's not really freedom of speech. How would you define it?
Well, of course, it's the right to speak within a context and bearing in mind the rules and responsibilities that go along with the practice of any right. So I have the right to self-defense, but there are certain rules that I must observe in that right to self-defense. I have the right. You have a body of rights within a democracy, yes. You have the right to life, but if you take somebody else's rights, you might lose that right. All of those rights exist within a context. They are not just to be practiced. You can't just get up this morning and decide, here is what my free speech looks like. In a democracy, in a participatory democracy, that is defined for you. It's not something that we just get up and decide, It's defined for you, so you can't cause mischief. You can't just do it with the intention to cause mischief.
Yes.
You have to be aware of how those rights are managed or are to be practiced.
Yeah.
Because if they are not, then they will be policed. And if it looks like the right is going to cause more harm to the common good, then people are going to look at that. And that's why we're having this debate. It's not because you're saying, okay, there's been a total abandonment of the regard for freedom of speech.
Well, could you just, I'm sorry, Ms. Spence, could you just hold that thought? We are at a break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
This is Love 101, the family station. It is now 7:15.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? Me love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. Me love me shorty bread.
It's our Independence, Jamaica, and Berger wants you to celebrate with our Step Up to Savings promotion. That's right, get 10% off selected paints and get a free gift with your purchase. So whether you want to show off your national pride with colors like black, green, and gold, or you're interested in any of our thousands of colors, you'll still get 10% off and save big. Promotion ends August 31st, and remember, get a free gift with your purchase. Berger, for lasting beauty and protection.
You know how Jamaican people do everything extra, right? So why should planning your retirement be any different? Introducing JNGI Silver Shield. 2-in-1 coverage for motor vehicle and home including contents. See? Extra! Imagine 25% JN member discount, emergency roadside assistance, accident forgiveness up to $1 million and more. JNGI Silver Shield. Exclusively for members of the Caribbean community of retired persons. Visit jngi.com. JNGI. We'll help you find a way. A member of the JN Group.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And for this, the first watch, we are looking at the topic, freedom of speech. In Jamaica, fact or fiction? And we have online discussing this issue with us, Ms. Nadine Spence, social commentator. Now, Ms. Spence, we started out by, examining this case of this man in Monique St. Anne. Do you believe, based on the allegations and the newspaper reports, was he able to exercise his freedom of speech?
Okay, so let us contextualize the times that we're in. What is it that we face as a nation and as a people? We face a reality called COVID-19. And COVID-19 exists where the very survival of our democracy is at risk at this point. And it's the strangest thing, Reverend Suzanne, because normally when we talk about a threat to democracy, we usually talk about war, and we usually talk about economic survival, right?
Yes.
At this particular point, perhaps for the first time, at least in our generation, in our lifetime, or even some generations before, we've not seen a threat to our democracy. That is a health threat, a health risk. It's a new phenomenon in this practice of democracy. And when I say this practice of democracy, I mean a practice of democracy that is now more concerned about the preservation of personal freedom. Remember, we talk about democracy as preserving the common good. This practice of democracy, because of the proliferation of social media and other forms of self-expression, what we are seeing more and more is that personal freedoms are taking precedence over the common good. So we are facing a risk, and the risk is COVID-19. And
Yes.
people are getting information that the government cannot control information that people is getting. It's a different age. Communication is coming to people from different states, and people are expressing themselves in what they think is in private, but is having serious impact on the common good. For me, the question is not whether or not a personal freedom was impinged on. The question is, in this case, as we contemplate the future of Jamaica, what seems more at risk? Because that is when we decide what to preserve. Is it the common good that is more at risk, or is it personal freedoms that are more at risk? And that's an assessment that we have to make. But remember, democracies are not unqualified, Democracies exist with the idea that your personal freedoms can be impinged on under certain circumstances.
Yes.
So you have to then examine your context. In this context, what is happening? And what is the action that the government needs to take, or the state needs to take? Let's not say government. What action does the state need to take to preserve the common good? Because that is why the state is there. The state is there to balance the preservation of the common good versus personal freedom. And in this particular case, what seems more at risk? And I'll ask you that question. In this case, the space that we're in Jamaica and the global community, what seems more at risk? Is it the common good, or is it personal freedom?
No, but was he wrong, therefore, to express his views on that video?
It's not, I don't think it's a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of what is the response that you give in a particular context. Given this context, it might not have meant anything 2 years ago. He might have said what he did 2 years ago and not have stole payment in mind. I doubt he would not have. I think this is the person who would have done this 2 years ago, and it wouldn't have carried as much as it did. But in this time, it has a different significance because of what is at stake. And that is why I said to you, for me, the conversation is not free of the context. You have to put the conversation in the context and then ask yourself, what is appropriate given the reality that we live in? Is it that we feel that that personal freedoms must be maintained at the expense of the common good, or do we feel that the common good supersedes personal freedom? I, however, Reverend Toussaint, know that states are balancing that act all the time. So when we talk about the right to free speech, we must remember that the right to free speech does not exist on its own. It exists along a continuum of rights and with other rights that also need to be preserved.
Okay. Well, I gather we have online Donahue Martin, attorney at law and criminal lawyer. Good morning.
Good morning. We prefer the term criminal defense lawyer than criminal
defense lawyer. Okay. All right. Good morning, Mr. Martin. And yes, and also we have online Miss Nadine Spence speaking to us. All right. What's your take on the whole matter, Mr. Martin, from a legal perspective?
Well, from a legal perspective, freedom of speech quite literally is a constitutional right. However, like every other constitutional right, there are limitations to it. The limitation, of course, being whether or not you're infringing on somebody else's right. So in relation to, treating with somebody's reputation, you have laws in relation to defamation. You also have national security interests. So of course, you can make indications inside riots, inside rebellion, that might be an issue. And generally, in relation to a constitutional right, the limitation speaks to whether or not that limitation is demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. That's a general, legal context of limitations to one's constitutional right.
So I gather that a part of what was said by the young man included profanity. What does the law say on that?
Well, the Communities Act, for the best of my recollection, speaks to making or indecent and obscene language publicly. Of course, the Town and Communities Act predates the whole social media evolution. So I'm not sure if his indication can be deemed to be in a public thoroughfare, which is what the Town and Communities Act speaks to. But certainly, that I don't believe that has been explored. But generally, the use of indecent language isn't always illegal. It's just within the context that you say. Because of course, somebody, indecent language in our movies, in some of our television shows. So it's not always illegal. It's the context in which you use it. And to the best of my knowledge, if you use those words in a public thoroughfare and in front of a constable, that is what gives rise to an offense. I'm not sure if saying something on social media without more is an offense in law.
Your take on that?
Understanding of the law.
Yeah. Your take on that, Miss Spence? The use of profanity?
Again, my take on it is again, you exactly, and I agree very much with the attorney's explanation in respect of how democratic rights are practiced. They don't exist just in a vacuum by themselves. The law and the democratic principle dictates that, yes, you have these rights, but there's a context in which you practice them. So yes, you can swear and you can curse in private, But if it's done in a particular way in public and people can have evidence of it, then it is a different kettle of fish. So you can't just climb a tower and rope too, because it depends on who is observing the activity.
But of course, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know that there are those who are saying that there's really nothing known as bad words, nothing known as obscenities. It's just people's different perspectives on it.
That's an academic exercise which should be seen to be different. You know, when I'm a part of an academic community, and in an academic community, when we are sitting in class, we can discuss those things in a context. But when you apply them in principle, it doesn't necessarily work. And so managing a country and running a country and trying to get consensus is very different from that academic exercise of making an argument or arguing a point. It's very different.
Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Another allegation is that the gentleman was made, and remember now, this is an allegation, we really do not know, was made to apologize on a video to the Prime Minister. Your thoughts on that, if it really took place as alleged?
Well, you know, I'm very, very careful about commenting on that, only because I don't know the context. I'm not sure if the young man decided that, I'm sorry. So I don't know the context in which, he or that apology was given. And admittedly, I won't lie, I haven't actually seen a lot of the video footage. I'm not that in tune with the social media, I have to be very honest with you. I just know the general allegation. But certainly, the police, we don't live in a police state. So the police and the military are not entitled to force anybody to make any indications they don't want to make. Certainly, we have a right to our own person and our own content. So if I have a particular view on, whether the Prime Minister lead or the opposition, I'm entitled to indicate things. As indicated previously, I'm not sure if just making an indication on social media that, is littered with some profanity is a criminal offense. Before somebody can be arrested, I'm not aware as to whether or not that is a crime. And I'm not even sure the young man was charged for anything in any event. So there are a lot of, the general circumstances were a little bit problematic, but certainly there's an investigation ongoing based on the utterances in the public. And perhaps at the end of those investigations, I could comment a little better. But certainly, as indicated, the police cannot indicate or you must apologize for what you had said previously. But of course, the young man, utilizing his own conscience can make that, can decide to do that if he wants to.
Yeah. Okay. Miss Spence, we have 1 minute. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's where I think for me it's sticky, because I don't think police has coercive power. So I would have hoped that the police did not
it's all allegation
into apologizing.
Yeah, it's all an allegation.
Yeah, it's an allegation, I can't say, but I get the issue of do you force people to do things that they don't want to do? Does the state have that right? And to an extent, of course, the state has that right. But in this case, that the state's right to practice its coercive power wasn't necessary, because it's not necessary for the state to say to people, you must apologize to the Prime Minister. That's another kind of state. That's not a participatory democratic state. And so in its exercise of its coercive power, the police might have interfered with his personal right to not have that coercive force used against him at that time. Because there's a context in which the police coercive power.
Right. And the context of our program tells us that we are out of time. So I want to thank you both for joining us, Miss Nadine Spence and Mr. Donahue Martin. Have a productive and blessed day.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Auto Loan, helping you on your journey. Roll out and make a statement in your brand new vehicle.
The time by JN will help you find a way is 7:31.
It's our Independence, Jamaica, and Berger wants you to celebrate with our Step Up to Savings promotion. That's right, get 10% off selected paints and get a free gift with your purchase. So whether you want to show off your national pride with colors like black, green, and gold, or you're interested in any of our thousands of colors, you'll still get 10% off and save big. Promotion ends August 31st. And remember, get a free gift with your purchase. Berger, for lasting beauty and protection.
Chris Charles has something special for you this and every Friday at 11:45 a.m. Listen to the information carefully, then answer the questions in the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner. There is so much to learn and you can win something fabulous from Chris and Charles. That's the Chris and Charles Financial Quiz Corner, Fridays at 11:45 a.m. Chris and Charles, when you think loans, think Chris and Charles. And it's on the family station Love 101.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? Me love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. Me love me shorty bread.
DJ Bongs. Make we rich together with Digicel. Just call 142 or dial star 142 number sign from your prepaid phone for a chance to win your share of $42 million in cash and prizes. Enter to get $500 bonus credit. Smartphone users get 500 megabytes any use data and 1 gigabyte BIP data, while non-smartphone users get 10 minutes and 50 SMS free for Digicel to Digicel calls and texts. Each entry costs $100. From now until September 14th, make we rich together with Digicel.
Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming, and Lotteries Act.
Trelawney, love come, so you better tune in for the fun holy I love summer festivities, so you know a nice activities. Hey, I love summer, hey, I love summer, whoa, I love summer, hey, Trelawney, hey, Trelawney, hey, we miss it.
When all is done and said, me love me shorty bread. You love your shorty what? Me love me shorty bread. And it was made by honey bun. Me love me shorty bread.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, we see here that Trelawney police seeking public's help to identify body of male. And then Indicom collects several statements in dreadlocks trimming probe. We also are seeing that wildfires in Algeria leave 32 dead, including 25 soldiers. Okay, for the time being, those are some of the major news headlines. We see also hotel cluster in terms of the Western Bureau making that report. And a patient says, I watched 3 people die, says a recovering COVID patient. All of those stories are in the Gleaner. Well, coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. Where do we draw the line on freedom of speech in Jamaica? Please leave a comment on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
Do you have a friend with paws, fur, feathers, or gills? Do you want to learn more about how to care for them? Tune in to Paws and Pals every Wednesday at 11 a.m. during the Morning Express as the Jamaica Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals teaches us how to care for our pets. Listen on Love FM radio and on our YouTube channel and Facebook page to find out how to take care of your little friends. That's Paws and Pals, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and the spiritual guidance may just be what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor, on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything at all. For the month of August, our focus on the counselor will be managing inferiority complex. Yes, it's a fancy term for low self-esteem. I'll have a special guest, Raquel Russell, who will share her struggles with low self-esteem, what it did to her, and how she overcame. Maybe you have a similar story and need help to overcome your low self-esteem. Join us on Wednesday, August 11, as Raquel, who is now a confident and vivacious woman, inspires and encourages with her story. Tune in then, listen, call in, text or voice message, and let's help you start the journey to overcoming your issues. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear on the counselor, right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Welcome back. You're tuned into the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's join Siobhan for a look at how our Facebook and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. Where do we draw the line on freedom of speech? Siobhan.
All right, quite a number of responses to the question, but I'll just go through some of them. This one says, the man in Sintan has freedom of speech, but does he have the right to broadcast his disgusting and offensive words? All right, Tracy says, we pretty much don't know the law, right? So some of us are confused and we don't know the law. Let me see what this one says. Yes.
Good morning, Brother Shevwani. I think that real freedom of speech in Jamaica or anywhere, whenever we reach a point where we feel free to say anything that we want to say before whatever audience, in any way we to say it, regardless of how disrespectful, regardless of our breaking any law to support our freedom of speech. I think that we are really taking a real backward step into an uncivilized, lawless society. Thank you.
All right, that's where I leave it, Trev, for now. Keep the couple going, folks.
All right, thank you. Thanks to all those who responded. We appreciate it. Well, listeners, it's now time for the second watch. And after a record start, followed by a near silent month of July, the Atlantic hurricane season looks like it will be busier than meteorologists predicted a few months ago. Indeed, meteorologists are now forecasting 15 to 21 named storms instead of 13 to 20 that was previously predicted. They're also saying that the number of predicted hurricanes is 7 to 10 instead of 6 to 10. Well, to discuss this troubling development, we have joining us Mr. Rohan Brown, head of the Weather Branch, Met Office, and Mr. Richard Thompson, acting director from the ODPEM. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Morning.
Yes, good to have you both with us this morning. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Brown. What's this about a busier hurricane season than first thought? On what basis is such a claim being made, sir?
Well, in terms of the activities that are happening, the environment itself is becoming more conducive to the development of more hurricanes. We're having a warmer than normal sea surface temperature. There's a weakening in the trade winds that normally causes sharing of the system. There's an enhanced monsoon trough over the Western African region, and along with the impacts of climate change, and of course, again, the warmer than normal sea surface temperatures, all these factors are playing in to what we're expecting to be an above normal hurricane season.
And you have mentioned some terminologies there, Mr. Brown. How accurate are these predictions?
Well, anywhere between 70 to 90% in terms of confidence, based on the models that we use and based on historical data as well. So it's highly accurate. Anywhere between 70 to 90% is accurate, and of course based on observations as well, because before the season you would have made a prediction, but in the middle of the season you'd have done additional observations. You would have seen what are the changes in the environmental factors that affect the development and formation of hurricanes, and then you would do a pre-assessment to say, okay, what is going to be the remainder of the season in terms of the activities, and as such, a slight readjustment, but still above normal activities for this 2021 hurricane season.
Okay, we're going to come back to you on that. Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
How prepared or unprepared is the nation at large for this busier hurricane season?
Well, we are prepared. We would have done a lot of work even before the updated forecasting that came out a couple of days ago. We would have looked at the work that we have to do, and even before the forecasting that would have come out in May, we would have been doing extensive work in terms of our national preparedness. A lot of work went into our shelter preparedness as well.
Yes.
Would have had done selection to and have on books 867 shelters across the country, and we would have done additional checks to ensure that these shelters are in good standing to facilitate our citizens if they should have to go into shelters. We're still operating and respond to a pandemic, so our work was in line with that as well, looking at the kind of COVID imperatives that have to go in, especially for our shelters, because when we have system impacting us in Jamaica, and if we go back to as far back as Gilbert, coming into Ivan, Matthew, Sandy, we would have seen displacement, and we will always have displacement when persons are impacted. So shelters becomes a mainstay in terms of part of our preparation. And so we would have put in a lot of work in those shelters. Looking at isolation areas, looking at the kind of sanitation protocols, the social distancing protocols. Shelters are normally crowded. But with COVID now, we have to ensure that we have additional spaces in the shelters. Most of our shelters are schools, so we use additional classrooms. And to ensure that we have the social distancing protocols. And looking at how we treat with families coming into the shelter. So that work would have gone in the municipal corporation, which is part and parcel of what we do. They are literally joined to the hips with the ODPEM. They would have been put into the work as well. They are part of the shelter inspection with the ODPEM, the Ministry of Health, Roads and Works, Fire Brigade.
Tell you what, Mr. Thompson. Tell you what, Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry. Could you hold that thought, please? Or at a break, we'll be right back.
This is Love 101, the family station. It's now 7:45.
It's our Independence, Jamaica, and Berger wants you to celebrate with our Step Up to Savings promotion. That's right, get 10% off selected paints and get a free gift with your purchase. So whether you want to show off your national pride with colors like black, green, and gold, or you're interested in any of our thousands of colors, you'll still get 10% off and save big. Promotion ends August 31st. And remember, get a free gift with your purchase. Berger, for lasting beauty and protection.
The world is full of job opportunities locally and overseas. Let us bring them to you. Register now at Distinction College located at 26 Hagley Park Road, Kingston, 6 Nugent Street, Spanish Town, and Ocho Rios. In 2 to 3 months, earn local and international certificates in housekeeping, food and beverage, food preparation, receptionist, and customer service. Qualified to work in hotels, cruise ships, restaurants, and businesses worldwide. No subjects required, no age limits, no entrance test. Day, evening, and Saturday classes begin very soon at low school fees, easy and flexible payment plans. Call us 356-4167.
Munchie! Yes, Boss I'm heading out now. Straight to Cars Auto Montego Bay.
The entire Jamaica is heading to Cars Auto.
About variety, aye there. And the vehicle them clean as a whistle, and the price right. A two of them say good quality, best price.
Cars Auto.
Bills to pay and funds to transfer? No problem. I do it all on my time with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my simple and secure as that online banking.
Phone credit need a top up? No problem. I do it with JN Bank Live Online Banking.
It's quick and easy with just a few clicks. JN Bank Live, online banking that goes where you go. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the second watch, we are looking at the whole matter of a busier 2021 Atlantic hurricane season, as predicted by the forecasters. And we have online Mr. Richard Thompson, Acting Director General of the ODPEM, and Mr. Rohan Brown, Head of the Weather Branch at the Met Office. Mr. Thompson, before the break, you were telling us about the plans, preparations being put in place. I want to ask specifically, Mr. Thompson, about back to the COVID concerns, because with physical distancing, that would mean that the traditional areas, shelters, space would be of great concern. How are you going to plan to address that?
Yeah, what we would have addressed that already in the assessment. So we normally, when you are using a lot of the facilities that we always use as shelters, you would have used like probably 2 classrooms in a school.
Right.
But we know after that we use more classrooms. So it's normally a school as a shelter. We would not be using the entire facility in a particular area. So what we are doing now is using additional space within the buildings as holding areas for persons. So we would have looked at that, and we would have done all the work, and we would have done the selection for the shelters, and we would have looked at the isolation areas and how those are to be managed. They should have their own independent bathrooms or attached to the room, or in close proximity to the room, where there is a separation between persons who might have to go into isolation and the general shelter population. So all that assessment would have done, and those selections would have been made. Going back to the work of the municipal corporation, a lot of work went in as well, identifying what is classified as the priority drains within parishes and communities. And a lot of work went into to ensure that those drains were cleaned and are being cleaned, because we're talking about a 6 month period where you still have to look at what has happened or what is happening throughout the season, and to ensure that those drainage systems are clean as
So then, So then, Mr. Thompson, what assurance can you give us in roads like Marcus Garvey Drive? Constantly flooded when we have heavy rains. What's the update on roads such as Marcus Garvey?
So the from other discussions, the Marcus Garvey Drive situation, extensive work is being looked at in terms of what's on the side of the National Works Agency as to how best to deal with that situation. But you will have areas that the work to correct them would be a little bit longer in terms of the process, the redesign, and the work that is happening. So that will take a little time. But what we normally say to persons that those areas that are troubled areas that with the state entity will take a little time to correct those. That person should avoid those areas in times of major hurricanes and major rainfall activities, because you really don't have to have hurricane or storm system for us to have challenges. We can have adverse weather events that can lead to flooding. So we normally say to avoid flooded areas. Areas will be flooded. There is no work that any country can do that will say that you will not have flooding in any country. You would have seen countries that have greater resources than us, the likes of Germany, the United States, other places in Europe that are having challenges in terms of Australia, New Zealand. You will have flooding whenever time you have rainfall. It's just how you manage that situation and the kind of information that goes to the public to say, avoid these areas. This is how you operate if you have flooding. Don't cross flooded areas. Don't try driving your vehicle through major flooded areas. Some areas will have water up to a point, and it will, after you have a kind of subsiding of the rainfall, the water quickly runs off. But it's not to go through the water while the event is happening.
Yes. Mr. Brown, still with us?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. I gather that weather forecasters will no longer be using the Greek alphabet to supplement the list of named storms. If that is so, why was that decision made, and what is the alternative?
Well, that is correct. So what the Greek name, right? So for example, if you continue to use the Greek name and you have a spillover, right? You are going to, in effect, exhaust the Greek alphabet as well. Therefore, the thought was that let us go and have a supplementary list that in case we go over the named storms for the year, that there is another list that we could use. And this year, in the region hurricane meeting, they made that decision.
But that list, Mr. Brown, could also be exhausted.
But the yes, and if that is the case, then they would go to
They have a third list. They have a third list.
No, the third list is not there. But we're certainly not expecting 44 or 46 hurricanes.
As you never expected last year, 30.
Well, it was for an above average season, and we would have exceeded the list in the past. So there is a possibility, and as such, there is the need for an additional list just in case the season requires such.
Okay, so no more Greek. We won't be speaking any Greek as of this year. Okay, all right. I appreciate your both of you the task and the job that you have, and Mr. Brown, there was a time in my life I was thinking of your profession. I know it's difficult to predict things, but let's look on the last time we had a storm. That was what? Hurricane Elsa?
That's correct.
A major storm, and persons entered into panic buying and all of that. And some persons are now saying that this is the wolf effect. And therefore, what do you say to such persons, Mr. Brown? After they bought up all the things stuck up in your house, and then the thing just swerved to the right and didn't trouble Jamaica that much?
Well, if they were listening to the forecast that were given, the bulletins and the news release, you could have tracked the system as well, because we had projected that the system would go just south of Hispaniola, then move between Jamaica and Hispaniola, and then
Mhm.
move across Cuba. And that is what occurred. And it's not like 20 years ago where you don't have the information readily available. We have our smart devices. We have the technology out there. We have the information. So in these times where the information is abundant, what persons need to do is listen carefully to the messages from the Meteorological Service and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, because there are other voices out there, and other voices at times might mislead. So if you listen to the authority, the authentic voices, the Met Service, the ODPEM, those institutions, and you listen carefully to the messages, the bulletins, because they come out pretty regular. They give you the impacts, where likely to be affected, what is likely to be the element that will cause the impact. And if you listen carefully, you will be able to make wiser decisions. But sometimes, you listen to a WhatsApp message where somebody just says X, Y, and Z, and sometimes that might be misleading. So my advice is listen to the authority on the subject, listen to the ODPEM, listen to the Met Service, and listen to the updated messages, because a message might go out at 5 o'clock, so the system is at X, and at 8 o'clock it might be at X+1.
But at what stage you start buying then, Mr. Brown? What stage you start buying your food stuff and stocking up?
48 hours. That is good enough time. But what we always say that throughout the hurricane season, you know that between June 1 and November 30, you're going to be impacted either by tropical waves, either by a storm or something. So it is likely that you might be impacted, and therefore prepare before that. So if you want to buy additional goods early in the season, like November, non-perishable items, those are things you can do, because those are things that you can restock every 2 months, every 3 months as you go through the season, and then you won't have to panic buy. So if you prepare, and that is the essence of the message as well, that during this time, the preparation is always critical. So if you could buy a little more than you can and stock it up, especially non-perishable items, that is something we recommend.
Okay, all right, Mr. Thompson. As we draw to a close, any words of advice to our listeners as we prepare in terms of our homes, our communities, business places of worship?
I think Rohan would have given solid information.
Well, he mentioned the stocking up, but what about the other physical
stocking up, but
the building and all of that?
The other aspect is to look at your current roof systems. A lot of persons would have known now whether they're having leakage coming out of Elsa and the other rainfall activities that we have been having. So you do those checks, you do any kind of roof retrofitting that you have to do in terms of checking the members of your roof. Start your cleaning up outside. You're in the hurricane season. We can have an event happening at any time throughout the season. We're in the most active part of the season now.
Right.
So do the cleaning up outside. Anything on the outside that will act as missiles during the hurricane, you clean up those.
Yes.
Start looking at your family emergency plan, your plans for your offices and buildings, how you're going to secure items in the homes, your valuable documents, and major appliances. Same thing in offices, how you have to secure your computers and documentation in the offices if something should happen.
Okay.
And look at your business continuity plans, especially for businesses. How you're going to ensure that after an event, and if you are impacted, you can be back up and running as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you.
That's one of the things that person should pay attention to ensure that there is continuity of your operation. There is safety, which is the paramount thing that we preach, that everyone is safe and secure throughout the season.
Thank you.
Non-perishables, as Rohan would have said, doing those rotations.
We have to leave it there now, Mr. Thompson.
Transistor radios if your power should go.
I have to leave it there, Mr. Thompson.
Adequate water. All these things we normally say to the general.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you. Time is upon us. Well said. Thanks to Mr. Richard Thompson and Mr. Rohan Brown for joining us. Have a productive day, gentlemen. All the best.
Same to you, sir.
And same to you.
Great. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for a discussion of topical and controversial issues. Download the Love 101 FM app from the Apple or Play Store so you can listen to the program again. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint. Hand you back to Love in the Morning with Siobhan Blair.